This was one of those days where when you finish the day, if you had like a pedometer, it would say like 25,000 steps, because I feel like I spent most of the day walking around the vendor hall. While I was kind of exploring Apimondia today, I decided I was going to spend most of the day in the vendor hall and try and check out every single booth. So remember, there's 7,000 people at this conference. And in the vendor hall, there's at least 136 different vendors in there as well. I did like a time-lapse video of walking through the entire vendor hall, and I just walked down every aisle once, not like back and forth. And it took me nearly 20 minutes just to do the whole thing. So it took like less than 15, almost 20 minutes to just walk up and down the other booth. And so like I did this time-lapse video, and it's like super disorienting and makes you sick, like watching it just with all the people and all the booths and everything. So it was really interesting. There is a lot of stainless steel here, so there's a lot of extractors and processing equipment, things like that. I spent some time watching wax foundation making machine. It doesn't put the wires in the wax, but it has a big hopper of wax, and it disperses that on these rollers, and then it cools it, and then it cuts it. And I was watching that for a little bit. I thought that was interesting. There's actually 2 of those here at this conference. They both look kind of the same designs, but there was that. There's also the kind of the normal vendors from all over the world that kind of sell woodenware. There's a lot of fondant here. There's a lot of already made fondant, and there's a lot of syrups. There's a lot of like things where you can like make your own inverted syrup. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And you know, my feelings on all the feeding supplements is it's very confusing and disorienting, and it's hard to make sense of all these things. Like, here's an example. So we walk by this booth, and they're selling fondant, and they're selling like 5 different types of fondant. If you don't know what beekeepers use fondant for, it's for feeding bees. I like using it in the winter, but there's like 5 different types of fondant from this one vendor, and like one of them is like Fondant Pro, or Fondant Pro, Fondant Health, Fondant Boost, Fondant Power, and then like Fondant Noxzema. And anyways, all that kind of stuff, it gets really confusing to me with the feeds and what they do and what they don't do, because you look at all of them, they all are incredible and will change the life of your apiary. So anyways, that was just my thoughts on just like walking around the conference center. I saw there's a lot of AI stuff here today too, which I thought was this interesting, and doing an analysis of honey and doing analysis of like swabbing your hive and sending that off to check for AFB and EFB and pathogens and things like that. So I thought that was really kind of interesting. I think the US could use a little bit more or better access to testing for the average beekeeper. So I spent a lot of time walking around the vendor hall, really enjoyed it, met with a lot of different people that I know, met some new people, got some good demos on how to actually, you know, what certain things do. There was a tool there that I thought was really interesting. It is this metal wand, and the idea is that you take, instead of marking your queen with a paint pen, you would mark her with a magnetic colored button, basically. It's just a little piece of metal, but it's colored for whatever year you want. So you stick this onto the queen, and she walks around, and then you have this metal tube that you would insert into the hive, and you would just like pass it over the bees, and when it gets to the queen, that little magnet thing will pull the queen off the face of the comb, and it will stick to the rod. It took me a while to figure out how that works, but that was and then there's a special little device where you can like put it in the tube, and you can mark her that way too. So I thought it was kind of interesting. But in addition to like the vendor hall, I didn't spend a lot of time going through the other things because I was, you know, walking around that for so much. But I did go to a couple speakers, and the way that Apimondia designs the speakers is you speak for 15 minutes or so, and then you're done. So it's actually 12 minutes of speaking, 3 minutes of questions, and they will yank you off the stage to get to the next person. So that allows there to be hundreds of speakers at this conference, which I think is a perk of going to this. So you can sit in a room for a couple hours and listen to at least a dozen people. So I really liked it. So listening to a speaker talk about Nectar.buzz, which is like an AI machine learning tool for keeping the health of your hives, and it was actually able to predict the mortality of your hive based on the conditions that it is recording. And I thought that was an interesting one. I went to another one talking about gut health, and she was trying to decide if the gut health of a bee is affected by pesticides. She didn't go long, but she got cut short, so she didn't get to finish it. But one thing I did find interesting was she found that like most of the bees are exposed to all of the bacteria that they're going to have in their bodies by day 2, and the bacteria that she has in her body is pretty much fully developed and set at day 4. And I thought that was just kind of interesting. I guess that happens through touch with the other bees, the food that she is given, and just like touching the comb and the propolis and all those things inside the hive. So I thought that one was interesting. Went to another one that was called Bees Abroad, and this was done by our friends that we met on our tour, and they are teaching Ugandans about beekeeping using traditional methods. So they're not sending them a whole bunch of Langstroth equipment and saying you got to use American style stuff or English style stuff. They're teaching them how to use Kenyan top bar hives, how to make these hives themselves, and make sure that they can contribute to the society using the skills that they learned through this program and through all of the challenges of working in Africa. So it's a great program. They're in the UK and they have a lot of volunteers, and they're sending people to Uganda to teach people how to be beekeepers, mostly women and children. That is the group that they're passionate about. But they will teach men how to do this as well. And through that, they're allowed to get microloans for paying for things in their community, and they're using profits from the honey they make. I believe it was like collateral, or it was a way to pay off these loans that they get. And they're getting good money for their honey through this program. So that was another good one that we went to. Let's see, I didn't go to the posters. They have this whole section of posters, and I didn't get to go to any of those today, but there's 300 today, the same 300 tomorrow, and they reset, and they put another 300 posters out there. And these are people who are displaying information about a certain topic that they researched. So I'm gonna spend some time at that tomorrow. I'm gonna spend some time going to some speakers, and it's been a good conference already. I mean, we had breakfast this morning, lunch. We had like a burger. They have good food here, which is really nice. And then went and had dinner with some friends. So it's turning out to be a really nice conference, but it's rather exhausting. Recommend everybody who's interested in bees come into this thing, because this really got something for everybody, whether you have 2 hives or 2,000 hives. So anyways, hopefully you found that helpful, and we'll be back more with it tomorrow.